Tank apocalypse at Prokhorovka, the epic clash of armored titans. Hey everyone, if you're fascinated by epic history, gripping tales of massive battles, and want to dive deeper into the past, hit that subscribe button on our channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments, share what blew your mind, and let's unpack these historical mysteries together. Let's roll. Vast, open plains under a scorching July sun in 1943, where the air trembles with the roar of engines, the thunder of cannons, and the screech of metal on metal. This isn't a Hollywood blockbuster. It's the real deal, the Battle of Prokhorovka, one of the most intense showdowns of World War II. This wasn't just a clash of tanks. It was a full-on duel of giants, where the fate of an entire front hung in the balance. The Kursk Bulge, a massive jut in the front line, became the stage for a Soviet and German face-off that would echo through history. Today, we're diving headfirst into this epic moment, breaking down what went down, why it's so hard to pin down a winner, and how this battle shaped the war. Fair warning, the story of Prokhorovka isn't just cold facts and numbers. It's a saga of courage, strategy, mistakes, and sheer grit. We'll lean on historical records, modern research, and even toss in some thoughts on what might have been if things had gone differently. Ready? Buckle up, because we're headed straight into the heart of a tank apocalypse. To get why Prokhorovka was such a big deal, let's rewind a bit. By the summer of 1943, Nazi Germany was losing its grip on the Eastern Front. The crushing defeat at Stalingrad had rocked the German army, while the Soviet Red Army, battle-hardened and growing stronger, was gearing up for major counteroffensives. The German High Command, knowing time was against them, launched a bold plan called Operation Citadel. Their goal? To encircle and wipe out Soviet forces in the Kursk Bulge, a huge salient sticking out into German lines like a thorn in their side. By July 11, 1943, elite German SS tank divisions, part of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps led by Paul Hauser, had smashed through to the final Soviet defenses in the steppe front. This was a make-or-break moment. If the Germans broke through, they'd hit open terrain, where their tanks could roam free and deal devastating blows. The Soviets, seeing the danger, threw everything they had into the fight, deploying 2 full armies, the 5th Guards Tank Army under General Pavel Rotmistrov and the 5th Combined Arms Army. Right here, near the small railroad station of Prokhorovka, the stage was set for a battle that would go down in history as one of the greatest tank clashes ever. Busting myths, setting the record straight. You might have heard that Prokhorovka was the biggest tank battle of the Great Patriotic War, as the Soviets called World War II. That's a myth, and historians like Valery Zamulin have debunked it. Bigger clashes, like the one at Dubno-Lutsk-Brody in 1941, involved more tanks. But Prokhorovka stands out for its sheer intensity, drama, and its impact on the Kursk campaign. Why is there so much confusion about this battle? Well, the records are a mess. Soviet and German accounts paint wildly different pictures, and memoirs from big names like Rotmistrov, Manstein, and Guderian often twist the truth to make themselves look better. Even today, after digging through thousands of documents, historians admit there's no crystal-clear picture of what happened. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing and the rest not quite fitting together. Who struck first? The mystery of the opening move. One of the biggest questions about Prokhorovka is who kicked things off. Soviet histories claim the SS tanks charged first, with a Red Army hitting back in a counterattack. German sources flipped the script, saying Soviet tank divisions launched the initial assault to seize the initiative. The truth? It's probably somewhere in the middle. Prokhorovka was a classic head-on tank battle, where 2 massive armored forces slammed into each other like raging bulls. Imagine the scene. On one side, German SS tank divisions, armed with cutting-edge Tigers and Panthers, boasting top-notch optics, heavy guns, and battle-hardened crews. The Germans had prepped meticulously, their plan dialed in. On the other side, Soviet T-34 tanks, lighter but nimble, led by General Rotmistrov, who banked on speed and improvisation. This was a fight where both sides wanted to dictate the terms, and neither was backing down. The Soviets likely launched the first attack, desperate to disrupt the German advance. Rotmistrov, knowing hesitation could spell disaster, threw his tanks into the fray despite spotty intelligence and tough terrain. The Germans, ready for the challenge, met the assault head-on, banking on their superior technology. The result? Two tidal waves of steel crashed together on a narrow stretch of land, turning the fields near Prokhorovka into a fiery inferno. Numbers game. Who had the edge? Another big question is how many tanks were actually involved. German records claim they fielded 311 tanks and self-propelled guns, while the Soviets rolled out over 700 machines. Soviet historians, on the other hand, say they had a slight edge with 800 tanks against 700 German ones. Modern estimates lean toward the Red Army having 597 tanks and self-propelled guns, giving them a numerical advantage. But numbers only tell part of the story. German tanks, especially the Tigers, were beasts. Their thick armor shrugged off most Soviet shells, and their long-barreled guns could punch through T-34s from far away. The Red Army had no equivalent to these monsters, giving the Germans a quality edge. But the Soviets made up for it with agility and sheer volume. Rotmistrov bet on overwhelming the enemy with numbers and speed, throwing everything he had into the fight. Losses and outcomes. Who won? Figuring out who won at Prokhorovka is tricky. If you're rooting for one side, it's tempting to claim victory, but looking at it objectively, it's a draw with brutal costs for both. The Soviets aimed to encircle and destroy the German divisions, but fell short. The Germans wanted to break through to open ground, and they came close until Soviet reserves stopped them cold. The losses were staggering. The Germans lost 71 tanks completely destroyed, not counting damaged ones that were knocked out temporarily. Historians estimate that for every tank destroyed, 2 to 3 were damaged, many of which the Germans repaired by the evening of July 13th. The Soviets lost between 200 and 300 tanks, massive numbers that show just how ferocious the fighting was. Zoom out, though, and Prokhorovka was a turning point in the Kursk campaign. The Germans, despite tactical wins, couldn't achieve their strategic goal. Their offensive stalled, while the Red Army, bloodied but unbroken, kept enough strength to push back. After Prokhorovka, the Soviets took the offensive, and the Kursk Bulge marked the beginning of the end for Germany's Eastern Front. To grasp why Prokhorovka was so pivotal, let's look at the bigger picture. By 1943, Germany's economy was stretched thin. Resources were scarce, factories were struggling, and Allied bombings were hammering production. Building a Tiger tank cost about 800,000 Reichsmarks, millions in today's dollars. Germany couldn't afford to lose these machines in droves. The Soviet Union, meanwhile, went all in on mass production. The T-34 was cheaper and easier to build, with factories in the Urals and Siberia churning out thousands. In 1943 alone, the USSR produced around 19,000 tanks, compared to Germany's 6,000. This let the Soviets replace losses faster than the Germans could dream of. Plus, Lend-Lease aid from the US and UK, trucks, fuel, food, freed up Soviet resources for war production. Germany was also fighting on multiple fronts, stretching its forces thin while dealing with partisans in occupied territories. The Soviets, focused on the Eastern Front, could pour everything into battles like Kursk. This economic and strategic edge gave the Red Army staying power, even after devastating losses like Prokhorovka. Reflections. What makes Prokhorovka special? Prokhorovka isn't just a battle, it's a legend. It's about courage, sacrifice, and the steep price of victory. For Soviet soldiers, it was a stand-to-the-death moment to protect their homeland. For the Germans, it was a desperate bid to turn the tide. Why does this battle still grip us? It's a clash of tech and tactics. German Tigers versus Soviet T-34s. Meticulous planning versus bold improvisation. Experience versus raw determination. It was a moment when both sides knew the stakes were bigger than one field. It was about who'd control the war's momentum. I often wonder, what if the Germans had broken through? Could they have encircled the Soviets and changed the war's course? Or would the Red Army have rallied anyway? History doesn't do what-ifs, but these questions make us appreciate how fragile the balance was. Prokhorovka teaches us plenty. It's about being ready for surprises, how improvisation can offset resource shortages, and how resilience can turn the tide. In today's world, where wars lean heavily on tech, the lessons of strategy, logistics, and morale still hold. The Soviet ability to mass produce and adapt offers a blueprint for enduring long conflicts, something we see echoes of in modern geopolitics. The Battle of Prokhorovka is more than a history lesson. It's a testament to human spirit. It's about soldiers who fought through fear and exhaustion, commanders who made gut-wrenching calls, and a nation that gritted its teeth and prevailed. We can debate numbers, who struck first or who lost more. But the real story is the spirit of Prokhorovka, a reminder that even in the darkest times, you don't give up. Let this story inspire you to dig deeper, stay curious, and keep pushing forward no matter the odds. The fields of Prokhorovka still echo with that unbreakable will. Call to action. Yo, if this epic tale got your blood pumping or sparked some thoughts, smash that subscribe button. Let's keep exploring history's wildest moments together. Drop a comment. What blew you away about Prokhorovka? What do you want to dive into next? Your voice matters, so join the convo and subscribe for more.